RotoGrinders Today. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka BlenderHD. If you want to follow me on Twitter, and it's Tuesday, June 18th. We'll be taking a look at the 10-game, possibly 9-game slate. You have to check weather for MLB tonight. We'll talk about some props, maybe. We got stuff going on today, right? We got Grinders live. We got Crunch Time later today. If you always want to know when we're live, you got to click on that notification bell. So hit that like button. Give me those thummy thumbs first thing in the door. Hit the subscribe button if you're new here. And joining me this wonderful Tuesday, it's the man with the best hair in the business. It's CARTY.
How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Is there anyone else with the best with great hair in fantasy? I always know you as like the guy with the good hair, especially because I mean, come on, most of us don't really have much at all anyway.
Yeah, there's got to be some other contenders. I have to think about it.
Okay, so we got a 10-game slate tonight. We'll talk about it on DraftKings. We'll talk pitchers. We'll talk stacks. We'll talk some props. I got some home run stuff. Maybe not from the games that are on the slate because we also have a couple of early games. So you got a big card for props and pick 'em. Obviously, it's 11 o'clock in the morning. You probably should have been putting a lot of that stuff in. If you're going to do that, you got to use the bat projections, right? CARTY's the bat X. I always have to say the bat X projections, which makes it sound even fancier. You could get them here on RotoGrinders, and they're way too cheap. So I don't know why. And get one for your friend. Get one. I mean, just stock up. Get 4 bat X projections. That's how cheap they are. Like, just
Sounds
get it
like
twice.
a good idea to me.
Right. Just pay for it twice. Who cares? Right? And give one to your friend so they can make money off of props and pick them. But let's talk pitching on today's slate. I always put pitchers in buckets on this show. The A bucket, the B bucket, the C bucket. The A bucket is kind of like the pitchers where if I had one lineup, definitely want to have someone from this bucket in my lineup. B bucket is kind of like, okay, they're a little slightly off the board. You can play them. They're decently projected, a little bit lower owned to play. I'd be happy to have them in my one lineup, but if I'm making 3-5 lineups, it's like I'd probably mix these guys in. And then the C bucket is kind of like they're viable, probably going to maybe be a little lower owned. They have a ceiling, but let the buyer beware. Like, these are like kind of like large field. Like, sure, you could play. I mean, that could apply to anyone, but these are the ones that like the most viable in that bucket. I don't know about you. I'm not necessarily sure how many pitchers I could put in the A bucket today. And the first name that comes off to me is Pablo Lopez against the Rays, but we're going to act as if that game plays, but Roth has it as very shaky that game may even end up getting postponed before Grinders Live later today. So we're just going to act like it. You put Lopez there, maybe you put Valdez there against the White Sox because, I mean, you want to take pitchers against the White Sox, the A's. I mean, you have Alec Marsh there at 7,600. Are we at the point where Alec Marsh is an A bucket pitcher on this slate? It's hard for me to pull the trigger on Alec Marsh being like, oh, if I have one lineup, make sure you get at least one of Lopez, Marsh, or Valdez into your lineup. There's one guy that maybe Valdez, especially if Lopez is not, if that game gets postponed. Like, do I really? Am I like Valdez? I think 9,300 against the White Sox. I think I'm comfortable to say he's an A bucket pitcher. Is Alec Marsh is typically we play stacks against him. Like, CARTY, can you sell me on Alec Marsh being like he's going to be owned. Like that's all I could say. Like, he projects well for his price and he's going to be owned.
Yeah, I think the biggest kind of the biggest support for Alex Marsh today is that this isn't really the kind of slate where we have any truly standout pitching. Like there's some stuff that's like good, but like maybe a little more expensive. Like some stuff that's kind of just like, okay. Alec Marsh is not a very good pitcher. Like he's not as good as Pablo Lopez or Framber Valdez or Bassett, Cortez, Webb, any of the other, names we have on this slate. But he's facing Oakland, and Oakland's terrible, and Oakland is super strikeout heavy, and he's facing them in Oakland, which is a great park, great pitching weather. I wouldn't put him in the A bucket just because he is Alec Marsh, but I see why people are going to roster him today.
Right, but he's solidly a B bucket pitcher. I mean, I think to me this is a very B bucket pitcher slate. Like I could put a lot of people in the B bucket where it's like, okay, these are the guys that project well, but if you play them and they score -3 points, like don't be like shocked. Like these aren't like the greatest of pitchers, right? I mean, like you mentioned before, you had Chris Bassett, 8,500 against the Red Sox, a team I like to target strikeout wise, but it's Chris Bassett. And the Red Sox aren't like awful or anything, but I mean, they're not great, but they're not awful. You have Nestor Cortez against the Orioles, 8,800. Strikeout upside. I mean, I have his over on strikeouts, but he's facing the Orioles in Yankee Stadium. The Orioles, probably one of the best hitting teams in baseball. So, like, yeah, the ceiling's there, but B bucket. And then you also have, like, guys that just seem like just way overpriced. Like Logan Webb at 9,700. Can you play him? Sure.
You can.
Can you play Aaron Savali? Can you play like Logan, Tanner Hawk is 10-3 for whatever reason against Toronto?
How is he so expensive? How is he the most expensive pitcher on the slate?
Yeah. Justin Steele is maybe a little overpriced at 8,200. You would think Justin Steele 8,200. That sounds pretty fair. The wind is blowing out at like 15 miles an hour at Wrigley today.
Yeah.
And the Giants aren't like a high strikeout team. That makes it a little scary. I mean, when Hogan Harris at 6,800 against the Royals is like projecting, or Schwellenbach against the Tigers, like, dude, if you wanted to play like any of these pitchers, like it's fine. I don't want to pay up. It's just like it feels like I don't want to pay a lot for B bucket level pitchers. Can you sell me on out of the ones that we mentioned? Which ones do you lean towards the most? Because like
out of the cheaper ones, or out of the B bucket guys?
Yeah, out of the because like my natural inclination is no one's gonna play Nestor Cortez against the Orioles.
Yeah,
and I always prioritize strikeouts in GPPs over anything else. So, like, to me, like, Nestor Cortez and Justin Steele, even because, the Wrigley win only matters if you get hit the ball in the air. And if you're striking people out, it's not going to matter as much. So I'm looking more for those types of pitchers rather than kind of like run prevention types.
Sorry, what types of pitchers? I didn't really
strikeout pitchers. Like if I'm playing GPPs, it's like I'll take a chance on someone that could possibly, pitch 6 innings and throw 8 strikeouts rather than a guy that's like, well, if he does well, he pitches 6 innings and gets 2 strikeouts but no earned runs. But you don't have to worry about the earned run. It's like, well, I care. I don't mind if my guy gives up three earned runs if he could strike out 7 or 8 guys.
Yeah, I think the problem with this slate is that there aren't a lot of guys like that, raw stuff, really high strikeout upside type of guys. I like Nestor Cortez. I think he's probably the best guy of that mold, just because he does kind of have that stuff, that strikeout upside. The matchup's tough. People aren't going to play him as much as they otherwise would. But after that, Logan Webb's great, but we have the wind blowing out, and he's not really a strikeout guy. Walker Buehler, I guess, can strike guys out sometimes, but he's in Coors. Like, how much is the upside there, really? Griffin Canning at 5.5K against the Brewers. I know it's gross, but I think if you look at the strikeout upside of Canning there, it's not any worse than Aaron Savali or Schwellenbacher or even necessarily Justin Steele or Logan Webb. Like, I don't think anyone's got 10K upside on this slate, really, aside from, the couple that we mentioned up top. But, 7K, I think all those guys probably have that. And I think Canning's firmly in that mix. And he's a lot cheaper than everyone else and probably almost unowned.
Griffin Canning also has 7 home run against upside as well.
He has what?
7 home run against upside.
He does. I mean, obviously, but
right. I mean, I swear, like if I go like a home run, I mean, look at that. Look, okay, that's hits allowed. Hits, but still home runs on 2, 1, 1, 2, 1. I was looking at the hits allowed, thinking like he gave him 7 home runs against the Astros. It's like, and it was believable. I thought, okay, I guess that's possible. So I mean, which one would you put? Like would you consider the B bucket guys like Bassett, Cortez, Steele? Maybe you throw in Cannon at 5,500 due to price, and then like the C bucket would be like the overpriced guys, kind of like Webb, Hawk, Bueller, Hogan, Harris, maybe. I mean, is it nuts if you have the money to play Tanner Hawk at 10.3K? I mean, how many people are going to do that?
Yeah, I don't think it's nuts at all. I mean, I don't love the matchup. I certainly don't love the price, and I'm not a huge Tanner Hawk guy, but he's going to come in low owned. The price is going to scare people away, and it's the kind of slate where, like, if price weren't a thing, how many pitchers can you truly say are definitely better than him today? And I don't think the answer is very many.
But how many pitchers? How many is he? Is he better? I mean, but it's quite possible he's worse than 12 pitchers on the slate.
Oh, it's certainly
right?
possible too.
Right. So it's kind of a smorgasbord at pitcher. I almost feel like on this slate, and we'll talk about stacks. I think they're clearer hitting targets than pitching targets. Like I feel like I'm going to make 3 to 5 lineups today, and it's quite possible that I focus on like 3 teams for hitters, and then I just mix. I could just like close my eyes and say like which 2 pitchers can I fit into those lineups and be like, okay, that's fine. If I need expensive stacks, then I could do a Marsh Canning lineup, and and it's the type of day where it sounds awful to go. Like, yeah, I'm locking in Alec Marsh and Griffin Canning, but maybe this is the day that like no pitcher puts up more than like 20 fantasy points anyway, and.
Yeah,
like even Framber Valdez doesn't go out there and strike and do. I mean, it's like he gives you 22 points at 9,300, and it's like, well, you don't need that. I mean, if you got your stacks right, a 16-point pitcher will probably be good enough for you.
Yeah, definitely seems like that kind of slate. And so yeah, as gross as it is, I could see Marsh, Harris, Marsh, Canning kind of lineups. Get it done today.
So let's see how we get it done when it comes to stacks. Remember when we talk about stacks, we put them in these tiers, A, B, C, D, F. And this is all adjusted for ownership. I always have to make it clear. The top stacks are maybe higher projected, but as more and more ownership goes up, they start coming down, right? We're playing GPPs and DFS. And obviously we're talking about stacks, 5 guys, 4 or 5. From the same team, so there may be the teams that are low down that you can still play a one-off from, right? You can still play 2, right? Go for home runs. But let's start with let's not bury the lead. The Dodgers are in Coors.
They are,
and there's weather issues there also. So like the Roth has that as yellow. We're acting as if that game's fine. We're acting as if the Tampa Bay Minnesota game is going to play, even though it's quite possible if you're watching this 4 hours from now, that game is gone. You can't play Pablo Lopez anymore. You can when you heard us and you go, okay, I'm not going to play March. I'm just going to go Valdez Lopez and find a cheap stack. You may be in for a rude awakening. It's like, okay, maybe Alec Marsh does become the second best pitcher on this slate. Okay, so let's the Dodgers against Austin Gomber. The highest ceiling team on the slate, and like outside of like obviously like Ohtani and Hernandez and Will Smith, Freddie Freeman. I mean, really, it's like the top four are expensive, especially Ohtani at 6,900, and then it kind of gets affordable. I mean, and they're the road team, right? You got Rojas and Enrique and with the corpse of Chris Taylor. And Miguel Vargas in
Vargas I mean, yeah, like there are some cheap pieces in that.
Right. So I mean, you can even play a 5-man stack with the expensive guys if you're willing to play like a Alec Marsh, Griffin Canning lineup. It's a large slate, 9 or 10 game slate. The Dodgers, I think, are going to be the most owned team.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to be slightly overowned. Like, I think they're going to be, but it's not going to be like absurdly owned. But I don't think sometimes these slates where like the obvious spot is obvious. And then people like outthink themselves. Go, oh, they're going to be like, they'll be the most owned team. It's like, well, if they're 12% owned on this slate as a stack, that may actually be under-owned, right? But like 15% may be properly owned. So I'm putting them somewhere in the 15 to 18% range. I think well, we'll talk about the other stacks and maybe should be in the A tier above it. But just from an ownership perspective, I've got to put the Dodgers against, I mean, it's against Austin Gomber, Carty. Do I care? Do I really even care about like left? Like, can I not play Ohtani because it's a lefty-lefty matchup against Austin Gomber?
No, you're still playing Ohtani.
And on the other side, how about the Rockies are facing Walker Buehler? I mean, from a price perspective, I mean, the Rockies seem like way too expensive. But they are playing in Coors, and Walker Buehler is like not the high rate strikeout pitcher he used to be, so the ball probably will be put in play. I get the sense. I mean, we take a look at the Rockies lineup. I mean, to stack them, I mean, like Nolan Jones is 5K. Like Ryan McMahon is 5,100. Tovar is 5,200. Like, this is not. Charlie Blackmon is 4,800. Just from a price perspective, they only have a 4.63 total, which is like middling on this slate. There's like 6-7 teams that have higher totals. Do you think people play the Rockies because it's Coors, or do you think that they're expensive enough that people just stay away? It's hard for me to ignore the ceiling in Coors. Their price makes me want to put them on the D tier, but they're playing in Coors, and it makes me not want to put them higher.
Yeah, I kind of like them today. I don't think people are going to look at those prices and be like, yeah, I got to get me some Rockies today. But there are some cheap pieces to make it work. Like Amador's 2.5K. Like he'll bring the price of any Rocky stack down and fill kind of a crappy position. I think they have as much upside as anyone at low ownership. So yeah, I think B tier looks good to me.
Right, but I think your natural inclination was the C tier. My natural inclination was the D tier, and I'm going to go with you and then bump them up because of ownership. Because I mean, they could be even lower than we have them projected owned. Because this, I mean, as a stack, maybe there's a Ryan McMahon one-off or something that is owned in some degree. But as 5, I'm not exactly sure. So let's go down like from a point per dollar perspective. I think a good target on the slate. It depends on how much they're going to be owned, but the Astros have a 5+ implied run total against Jonathan Cannon. The Astros are I mean, the Astros used to be an expensive team, and now they're not. They're not, and it's not. And when you're playing the cheap pieces, you're not playing. Playing the corpse of Jose Abreu. Right? When I play those guys, right? I know Singleton is much more likely to get like pinch hit for, but like the top of the order, like Bregman's 4,100. I mean, Alvarez is 5,400, not 6K. I know Kyle Tucker isn't in the lineup, but against against the White Sox on the road. I mean, you could always throw in a Jake Myers or a Trey Cabbage at the bottom of the lineup to make your stack work. I think from a pricing perspective, the Astros are going to be like maybe second highest owned or something like that. Which means I can't put them in the A tier, but I mean, I think they're a solid B tier team.
Oh, definitely.
How much has the Astros been affected by Kyle Tucker not being in the lineup? Because it doesn't seem like it has like that much of an effect. I mean, it's Altuve, Bregman, Alvarez, Diaz is 3,900. Like, I mean, feels like you could play 1, 2, 3, 4, and then pick anyone out of 5 through 9. And I don't know. If I was running one lineup, I feel like I want the Astros.
I kind of think so too. Obviously, no Tucker, makes their offense worse, but they still have plenty of good pieces. The prices are pretty good. The matchup is great. I think they're easily a B tier.
Okay, point per dollar wise, another cheap team. Not going to be nearly as owned as the Astros. Actually, not going to be nearly owned at all. I think they have a low ceiling today, but they're facing Luis Severino, who could fall apart at any moment. He could look good. He could also fall apart. And that's the Texas Rangers.
Yep.
What do you think about the Rangers against Severino?
I mean, I like the prices on them. I like that not a lot of people are going to play them. Like you said, I don't think their upside is as high as quite a number of other teams on this slate, but I think at their prices and ownership, I think they're probably C tier.
Okay, I'm down for that. Then we got the visiting team in the Wrigley win game. It's not. I mean, when I say Wrigley win game, typically we're talking about like when it's like 20 to 25 miles an hour and the totals are like 6, 7 on each side, right? We get these like 12 and a half, 13 and a half run totals in Wrigley. It's not like that. So the total is like 10 and a half, which is still high. The Giants against Justin Steele. And then we'll also talk about the Cubs against Logan Webb, because the pitching matchup, I mean, these aren't bad pitchers. It's just you're getting an extra boost from a ceiling perspective. And the key thing is ceiling, right? Maybe not the average result, but the ceiling from the wind blowing out. So if the ball's in the air a lot, and these are two pitchers that, I don't know, fly balls, I guess. The Giants and the Cubs. And I think that more people will be concentrating on the Coors game than this game that maybe has 5 or 6 home runs in it. Or it has a ton of ground balls, and then people look at you in the Discord and CARTY and go, the wind's fake. It's fake wind. Fake wind. Fake news on the wind. So where would you put the Cubs and the Giants?
I think it's really going to come down to how owned they are. Right now, the bat thinks the Giants are going to pick up a good amount of ownership. You seem to think maybe not as much. So I think it kind of really depends. I think they're one of the better point per dollar teams on the slate. I think they have some of the highest upside on the slate. The Giants will pinch hit guys, but they also have plenty of guys with power that could take advantage of the wind. Chapman, Soler, whoever. If you think they're going to come in kind of low owned, then yeah, maybe they're A tier.
Right. I'm not saying they're going to be unowned, but I think they're going to be lower owned than they should be, being that the Astros are there, the Coors game is there, and they're facing Justin Steele, and people will look and go, well, why am I stacking against Justin Steele? Well, it's GPPs, people, right? I mean, you have to take on a little bit of risk, and to win these things. The Cubs are a little bit more expensive, and typically not one to stack against Logan Webb. I can see playing like one-offs on the Cubs, but I don't think I could put the Cubs any higher than like a C tier team as a stack.
Yeah, I think that's about where I'd have them.
Okay, super cheap. Okay, here's a super cheap team. Well, cheap in comparison, whatever. We're starting getting into the cheap stuff and the leverage stuff. one of the lowest projected teams on the slate. The Detroit Tigers against Spencer Schwellenbach. Obviously, you're not getting like leverage. Like Spencer Schwellenbach is not really going to be very owned. The ceiling on the Tigers is very low. The ownership is going to be low. They're not the worst team on the slate for their prices, but they're quite down there. I mean,
it sounds like a D tier to me.
Right. That's what it's like. I mean, it's borderline F. I mean, on a large slate like this, a 9-game, 10-game slate, I mean, it's borderline F from a stacking perspective. But like if Spencer Schwellenbach got blown up, I'm not shocked. I mean, like I'd rather, if I'm going to play a bad team, I'd rather face a bad pitcher, right? Than at least it's somewhat decent. I mean, it is what it is. But let me just tell you, I'm not playing. I'll just tell you outright, I will not be playing the Tigers today. So just but if you played them in like large field, I wouldn't. You're not nuts or anything, but it wouldn't be my first choice, right? Right, Carty?
Yeah, I'm with you.
But see, the difference is, yeah, I'm putting them on the F tier because there's another team that is similarly projected, but they're facing probably, especially if Lopez is off the slate, the highest owned pitcher on the slate, and that's Framber Valdez, and that's the White Sox against him. So like I can't put the Tigers and the White Sox on the same tier when it's like, well, if like the ownership on Valdez is going to be 35-40% owned, and Schwellenbach is going to be like nothing owned, like they can't be on the same tier, right? So like the Tigers go on the bottom, so you get the White Sox. With the fact, Carty, that we've naturally just stream pitchers against the White Sox and the A's. Are they really as? I mean, this is from the underlying metrics, right? Because you look at that. I'm just using your projections. Are those two teams as bad as they are? That like anyone with a pulse that can throw the ball 60 feet, 60 inches is viable. Like with that like stacking or anything is like it. Are they? I mean, I look at their lineup and yeah, you're right. It's not a good lineup, and there's people in there that probably shouldn't be in major leagues anymore, right? But I mean, and then you look at they're all like 3K on DraftKings. It's like, can they really be that bad that I can't play them like as a leverage spot at any point?
They're pretty bad. They're certainly the worst offense in baseball, but I'm with you that in a leverage spot, they have enough where you can do it. Especially as a mini stack, full 5-man, maybe that's tough, but Tommy Pham, Andrew Vaughn, Luis Robert, Sheets when he's in there, like there are ways you can get like a good 3-man White Sox stack and get some, probably get some massive leverage.
So this is a cheaper team that I don't mind playing against Tobias Myers, the Angels. Like they project much better. I mean, not much, but enough better than like the White Sox, the Tigers. But I mean, I don't know. The ceiling there is a little bit suspect as well. But I don't mind. But I mean, could you make a case that the Angels are a C tier team, or are they?
Yeah, I think you could.
Okay. Oh, so what's the case for the Angels?
Well, I think the case for the Angels is that they're not a good offense, but they're not as bad as a lot of these other, a lot of these other
guys.
You're not
selling me on them. They're not. Well, they're not as bad.
They're below
right?
average. They're not White Sox, Tigers, A's terrible, and they're facing one of the weaker pitchers on the slate, and they're doing it, in a decent environment. Like, and they're cheap. They're cheap, so I don't mind the Angels. I think they're a pretty solid C tier today.
So the A's are like a really good like store brand cereal, right? It's not Post. It's not, you're getting the Granny O's or whatever, like the fake Honey Nut Cheerios or whatever. But they're not bad, right?
Yeah.
But they're at least there's store brands, but it's not the brand name stuff.
Yeah, that's
at least it's better than Muslix or whatever. The generic grape nuts or whatever like that's in the aisle. So like at least it's better than that. Okay. Another. I mean, we're getting a little bit more expensive, but teams like the Red Sox against Bassett. I don't know how owned Bassett is going to be that you're going to get that much leverage on them. I mean,
if Pablo Lopez is off the slate, would that change your opinion on that?
if Pablo Lopez was off the slate, what would
like if that gets rained out? You think
yeah, you're right. The ownership would go up, but I think a lot of that ownership will go to Valdez.
Uh-huh.
A lot of it'll go to Valdez. I think a lot of it'll go to Valdez and Marsh, more so than Bassett. I mean, obviously the ownership will be spread out a little bit, but I don't think enough. I don't think if you're playing the Red Sox going, Bassett, over-owned pitcher, I hope he gets blown up. Yeah, I mean, you're getting a little bit of leverage there, but not as much. Are the Red Sox on the same level as the Angels today, or really should the Red Sox be underneath the Angels?
They should be underneath. I think they're a D or an F.
Or an an F tier team?
I think
really?
you can make a case for it.
Dude, have you seen some of these teams? You can make the case for all half the teams in baseball. Hey,
yeah, no, I think I'd probably put them D, but I wouldn't argue if someone wanted them F.
I mean, but like I take a look at the Red Sox and then I take a look at the Blue Jays, and I feel like from a hitting perspective, the Toronto Ponzi schemes, I want to play more of because they should. I mean, at times they can hit the ball. Like Tanner Houck at 10-3 is not really. I wish Tanner Houck was like 8K. So either one, I could play Tanner Houck, or two, I could play the Toronto Blue Jays as leverage against him. But now it's like the worst of both worlds. Would you rather? Okay, here's the question: would you rather play the Angels or the Blue Jays today?
I think I'd rather play the Angels.
So does that mean that we're putting the Blue Jays in the D tier and saying, hey, play against Tanner Houck or play the garbage White Sox?
Kinda, yeah. I think that's my read on it.
Okay, we talked about this pitcher earlier. You made the bull case. The bull case of Griffin Canning. He's 5,500. He's right. Most of your bull cases today, CARTY, they're cheap, they're not horrible. What's the worst that could happen? I mean, that's your sales pitch for most of today. But I made the bear case against Griffin Canning that if there's a one-off that I'm going to play on this slate, it's probably going to be a Brewer because Griffin Canning will give up a home run to someone today, if not two or three. I don't mind. I don't mind the stack. And truthfully, the higher owned you think the Dodgers are, and the expensive stacks are, and if we remove like Pablo Lopez, from the slate, or no, if Pablo Lopez stays on the slate, more people are going to need like a Griffin Canning to get the more expensive stuff. So maybe Canning ends up being 10% owned, 12. It just gives you a little bit of leverage. I don't know about you. I'm going to be bold. I'm going to be bold because they're expensive, more expensive than they should be. But I'm going to be sneaky and say that I don't know how many people are playing the Brewers today because I don't think they're going to be very owned. And when I see Griffin Canning on their rotation, I go, this team could score 10 runs today. I'm putting him in the A tier. Am I wrong to be that bullish?
You're not. I was actually kind of thinking of making a case to put them in the A tier. They'd certainly be B, but I think they have higher upside than just about any other team on the slate. Canning, I mean, we made the case because he's cheap, but he's not good. His stuff plus is way down this year. There's the potential to give up multiple home runs and just a complete blow-up outing. And yeah, if people are going to be drawn more towards the other stuff, I think the Brewers are probably one of the better, one of the best teams on the slate when you consider everything.
Right. This would be the high variance spot of the slate because I like targeting the high variance spots of like, well, the pitcher is going to be owned and the hitters have a high ceiling, and which one? Like, if I had a choice, if I knew that the Brewers are going to be way more owned than Canning, I'd rather play Canning. If I knew that Canning was going to be more owned than the Brewers, I'd rather play the Brewers. But which side I'm on, I'm not going to know until till 7:00, till whenever I feel out this stuff, but that's definitely something to target. How about another Ponzi scheme team, Cardi? Basically, Ponzi scheme teams are teams that I play because they project well and they just don't get there. And I'm not even saying that they're bad. They just put up like 5 runs and don't do enough. The Atlanta Braves against Casey Mize. I'm not the middle of the road ownership. I mean, I like the Braves as a team. I don't mind targeting Casey Mize. But I mean, they're like, I mean, I put them in the same level as like the Cubs against Webb. I mean, can you make a case for them to be a B tier, or can you make a case for them to be a D tier, or just sticking them right in the middle?
I think C is where they belong. Like, they have the upside. They're not bad, but they're not great either. They're not super cheap. I think C, they're kind of just, they're a team that's firmly in the mix, but you're not going out of your way to stack them.
A team that may not be playing tonight because of a rain out. If Pablo Lopez, let's say that game does play, and Pablo Lopez ends up being, 30-35% owned alongside Valdez, about the same ownership. Can you give me a case to play the Rays? Would you rather play the Rays against Lopez or the White Sox against Valdez, given the same amount of leverage from a ceiling perspective? Because obviously the White Sox are cheaper, but just from a ceiling perspective, is it the Rays?
I think it's the Rays, yeah.
But are they good enough against Pablo Lopez on a 10-game slate that, sure, you're going to get the leverage, but I mean, you wouldn't put them on like the B tier or anything, right?
No, they're kind of borderline CD for me, I think.
Right. So I mean, we put them on the same. It's a leverage stack, where it's like it can't be an F tier because of leverage, and he also can't be an F tier because the Rays are actually a better hitting team than some of them. Then I think I'd rather play the Rays today than the Red Sox.
Yeah.
I think it's at least with the Rays, if it plays, Lopez will get owned. Then here's a team. I don't know who's playing this team today. I know your projections have this stack like owned to some extent, but I don't see it unless people obviously just pretend that it happened yesterday and go, whatever happens yesterday happens today. The Mets against Michael Lorenzen. Like, I don't think. I mean, look at the slate. You have the Wrigley Win game. You have Coors. You have the cheaper Astros. Like, I'm putting the Mets. I know Steve's producing. He's not influencing me. But from a ceiling perspective, I mean, I don't think anyone's going to play the Mets today.
No, I don't think so either. And I think they're, kind of outside of the top, the top few teams that we really like. I think they're kind of right behind them in terms of their ceiling and everything else. And you're going to get them low owned. They're not overly expensive. Yeah, I can see them as like a low B.
Okay. Leverage question. Okay. This team obviously can't make the F tier. Or maybe it can, depending on how owned Alec Marsh is. Lopez, okay, the game gets rained out, right? Postponed. Tampa Bay, Minnesota's postponed. Everyone's like, oh my God. I got Valdez in my lineup, and who do I play in my second spot? And the world and their mother, goes, I guess it's Alec Marsh day. How excited are you? Like, are they literally? Oh no. They beat out the White Sox by 0.11 in your bad stack projections. How excited are you to play the A's today? Would you rather play the A's or the White? There's a good question. If you're sick enough, if you're one of the sickos, if you're a leverage sicko like I am, and it's like, okay, Valdez Marsh is the combo, and it's not like they're great pitchers. Would I rather play the White Sox against Valdez or the A's against Alec Marsh?
It's really like you're not excited about either. I think it's the White Sox for me. It's at least a better park, a better run environment. They're a little bit cheaper. I think Valdez will probably come in a little higher owned than Marsh, especially if Pablo is off the slate. I think it's the White Sox for me.
Do you think that question is like asking like an 8-year-old kid, like, would you rather spinach or Brussels sprouts? Like,
yeah, it's kind of like that.
Which one do you want? It's like, we're almost done. We're almost done. The other side of that, the potentially postponed game, we didn't even talk about Aaron Savali. I guess I mean, could you throw him in the C bucket? I mean, yeah, I guess for pitchers, maybe. I think he's a little overpriced. The Twins against Savali. I mean, Twins to stack the Twins is actually pretty expensive. Like,
Yeah,
I feel like,
cheap.
yeah, and Aaron Savali is typically not a pitcher I pick on. I'm going to make the case that the Twins, I just won't even play them. Just F tier. Just due to price and matchup. Just because remember, these are stats. So, like, are you really going to play 5 Twins on this slate today? I don't think so.
I don't think so. I'd make the case for D tier maybe, but I would at that point probably just rather play the White Sox and get the leverage. The Twins are kind of just there today. I don't think they're F. I don't think they're like one of the worst necessarily, but I don't think I'd be playing them.
Right. I'm putting them in the F tier.
All right.
Right. You got to put some teams in the A and the F. I mean, too many people. It's like BCD, and then people watch and be like, "Really? Everyone's just in the middle." It's like, we got to take a stand somewhere. So, not playing the Tigers and the Twins, and definitely playing the Giants and the Brewers. Okay, we got the Yankees. Right, I've been mentioning Yankee. They don't even have a 5-run total. They have like 4.9 total. They're facing Albert Suarez. Yankees, I mean, to me, the Yankees are a great one-off team, always. Right? They're like the Phillies. Like, I never mind a Judge one-off, a Soto one-off, a Stanton one-off. Obviously, the stack could go off. And typically when the stack goes off, it goes off with home runs. But they're also expensive today. And, like, the Astros have a higher team total. And the Astros are considerably cheaper. But just for their upside, I mean, Am I being too under on the Yankees today? Because it's not like they're going to be very owned.
No, they're not. I mean,
under?
if you made the case for the Mets in the B tier, I think you have to put the Yankees there too.
No, I think you put both New York teams there. No, you're absolutely right. I think yeah, you're right. I can't go back on that, right? Because I think the Yankees and the Mets are about in this very similar situations. Right. And I think, you have them in the bat projected owned about the same. And I still think that you're slightly off. Yeah, your projections assume rational thinking. And we know that human beings are not rational. So I take a look at some of this stuff and I go, yeah, no one's clicking on the Mets today. I think they're more likely to click on the Yankees today because whatever. 2 more teams. Oh, the other side of that game, the Orioles against Cortez. I mean, they're not an F tier team because they just hit too well. But I can tell you, I'm not playing the Orioles today.
No, D's as high as I could go for them.
But theoretically, CARTY, the Orioles could score 10 runs on any pitch. I mean, theoretically,
they could.
They could, right? But I mean, they're a good team in a bad matchup, and they're very expensive.
Yeah,
right. It's like if they were cheaper, they could obviously move up, and they're not going to be owned, and no one's going to want to pick on Nestor Cortez. But I also don't think many people are playing Nestor Cortez.
Right, you're not going to get leverage by playing them either.
Right. Okay, last team, Royals against Hogan Harris in Oakland.
Yeah.
You just interrupted and just goes F. Nope, we're not doing that. Just Hogan Harris is too good, right?
Hogan Harris is not good, but it's a bad environment. It's not a very good team. They're pretty expensive. You don't get any leverage. I don't see any reason to play the Royals today. Okay,
so we kind of got a sideways kind of metal fingers, I guess for the tier list, right? So if I was building a lineup today, like our show would say. So we're going to be playing Valdez, assuming that the Rays Twins game is off. So we'd be playing a Valdez Marsh lineup, and we'd be stacking the Brewers against Griffin Canning and playing like a 3-man San Francisco. Like it would be like 5-3 Brewers, Giants, Valdez, Marsh.
Kind of like it. I mean,
Right?
if you're playing Brewers and Giants together, you're playing two teams that are probably going to be pretty homer dependent. Like, are all those guys going to be able to homer together? I worry a little about, but I mean, I like them.
So we'll do it this way, Cardi. We'll have the money. We play 3 Giants. We play 4 Giants, 3 Brewers, and like an Aaron Judge one-off or a Pete Alonso one-off or
yeah, something like that works for me.
I think there's enough that would you agree? Maybe you don't. There's enough offense on the slate that you don't have to focus on cores.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay. And then but understand that there's a meta here, depending on the contest that you're in, that by 7 o'clock, everyone else has that same thought. And you look at like, why are the Dodgers only 12% owned? Right? Yeah. It's like, what happened? Why is Will Smith like 8% owned for like no reason at catcher? A weak position. And like and then you look at the Astros and they're like 3 times as owned as you thought they were going to be. It's like, and that the Wrigley game is twice as owned as you thought it would be. And next thing you know, the Dodgers put up 17 runs in cores. And you're sitting there like, right?
That is definitely within the realm of possibility today.
Derek Carty, thank you for joining me. Sell people on the BADX projections that if they're a RotoGrinders premium member, which they already should be. I know there's freebies watching this, but they should be RotoGrinders premium members. Sell me on the BADX projections other than me constantly saying that, I mean, you know, the running joke every week, right, that you're on is that I pump up the BADX projections. I say what I use, and I say it's well worth the $15,000 a month that it obviously is. And then you tell me how I must be reading the price wrong.
Yeah, it's significantly cheaper than that. It's worth more than you have to pay for it. It's really good. It considers pretty much any factor you can think of. You know, people are happy with it. People do well with it. You get lots of tools. You get the stack page. You get the ownership. You get all kinds of stuff. So yeah, if you don't have it, I feel like you're missing out.
Any good props that you didn't give out on your previous shows today? That's still around.
I have to see. I don't know if anything moved.
Some of my home run props move. I was going to give out these Cleveland home run props, but they're gone. I mean, Jimenez is still a decent value, but yeah. So in the course of the show, from the beginning of the show to the end of the show, all like David Fry was like, what was he like? Currently, he's plus 625. He was like plus 750, like literally like 45 minutes ago, and that was great. And same for like Bo Naylor. What was Bo Naylor? Bo Naylor's now plus 600. He was like plus 750 or plus 775 or something. You got to get these things.
You got to get them early, especially.
And I got a better price than those. You know, an hour ago.
Yeah, especially in popular markets like home runs, like pitcher strikeouts. Like you kind of have to get in early. There are some markets that don't move as quickly. Like today, I put out. I've been betting this guy almost every single day. Adele Amador for Colorado, under half a strikeout, plus 165. I've been doing pretty well with him. I like him again today. And I thought there were a couple good hitter walk ones today. Spencer Horwitz plus 290, Bryce Harper plus 165. I think are still out there at Bet365. Both those guys can walk. They're not facing pitchers with great control. They're showing pretty good value.
Both the guys could walk. I mean, I hope most of the league could walk, right? They could walk, run.
No, but these aren't like, guys that, have like a 4% walk rate. Like Bryce Harper takes walks and you're getting.
Right, he takes pitches, right? I mean, right. It's not Javi Baez, right? Who hasn't seen I don't know when's the last time he has walked, right? Okie doke. You can follow Derek Carty on Twitter at Derek Carty. Carty, you're going to be on Crunch Time later today, right?
Yep.
So you'll be talking about this all over again. 5 o'clock Eastern is Grinders Live, then 6:20 crunch time. It's on this channel. It's all one stream. So hit that like button on your way out the door. Hit the subscribe button if you're new here. Hit the notification bell to know when we go live. But Roth will have a weather update later today. I'm assuming at some point, it's quite possible that Rays Twins game is going to be postponed even before that show. But hey, if it's not, Roth will show you the radar. He'll tell you what's going on. And even with that Colorado game, he says it's dicey there also, depending on where the showers show up. So definitely you want to tune in later today, and I'll be back tomorrow. I think tomorrow and Thursday, it's going to be an early Grinders Live. So I'm going to have to tell Dean to set his alarm early. So he joins me in the morning for Grinders Live. So tune into that and tune into this show Monday through Friday, 11 o'clock Eastern, where I talk about all things you're thinking about. Daily fantasy props and pick 'em on RotoGrinders Today.